What's going on, everyone? Scotty White of World Combat Sports is back on deck. I'm not going to be on here long. I just want to talk to you briefly about UFC 246. It's going down. McGregor versus Cerrone. That'll be the notorious Conor McGregor against Cowboy Donald Cerrone. Best believe it. So let's get right to the card. First of all, the main card is going to be on PPV. And from what I understand, it's going to be around $64. All right. So if you're willing to pay for a card after I read off the main card, I'm going to start with the early prelims, and then I'm going to make myself up to the preliminary card and then the main card. So for all you mixed martial arts fans, this out there, pretty much I'm going to give you a breakdown to see if it entices you to kind of peek in this weekend for this card. Okay, from the bottom of the bottom, you have Sabina Mazel against JJ Aldrich, and a lot of these are just up and coming fighters. That's why they're on the early prelims. These are fighters who were going to the UFC house, the tough house. They've been fighting on like the lower scale venues, out of sight, out of mind, trying to build their record up, just trying to stay consistent with wins. In bantamweight division, you have Brian Kelleher against Ode Osborne. All these guys, Dana White, are raising up on the bottom level, the ground floor, before he really puts them in a position to be on the televised card. And then next you have light heavyweight Aleska Kamira against Justin Ledette. Like I said, you'll probably hear about these fighters in 6 months to 8, depending on how they perform. The good thing about the mixed martial artists, okay? The mixed martial artists who are competing in the UFC, they are allowed to lose. You know what I'm saying? When I get to the main event, you'll see what I'm talking about. They are allowed to go in here and lose quite often and still return if they are of value to the UFC. They may not be on a televised card, but they make it back to the cage. You know what I'm saying? They make it back to get a paycheck. And that's what they do. On the preliminary card, you have Tim Elliott, 15-9-1, against Askar Askarov, undefeated. That's going to be a tough fight for Tim Elliott, a guy who, is pretty wild but crafty. If you really don't know how to buckle down and don't fall for all the traps that Tim Elliott set with his awkward style, Tim Elliott is more so like a control drunken master. He's a very wild dude on the ground. He do some crazy stuff that you wouldn't be expecting, and it takes a high level mixed martial artist to kind of negate that, to get that win over Tim Elliott, because he's a tough dude. You know what I'm saying? Tim Elliott is a crazy tough fighter, but Askarov, man, is an upcoming contender, and believe me when I tell you, he's very talented. I'll say the same for the next fight, the featherweight fight. Sodiq Yusuff, he got knockout power. He's 10-1. That doesn't mean you're going to be able to go in there and knock out everybody. He's going up against Andre Philly. Hey, the dude's been around. He was making himself up through the ranks to fight on larger cards. You know what I'm saying? And he went through some losses. And he's 20-6. And it's going to be a tough test for Sodiq Yusuff going up against Andre Philly. You know what I'm saying? It just is. Yusuff is still proving himself. Philly's been in the game much longer. In my opinion, I believe Philly is much more skilled than Yusuff. So we'll see. And then we on the female side of the house for the women's flyweight division. The flyweight division is a 125-pound division, right? We have Macy Barber. It's a lot that's riding behind this female fighter. The fact that she's undefeated, she's 8-0. She's been putting in some pretty solid performances in the cage, and she's another fighter who the UFC is probably going to look to kind of, sell the attraction to. She's easy on the eyes. The UFC likes to find that one female that can represent the female division and do all the modeling and take the pictures and everything. You know what I'm saying? But Macy Barber, she can actually fight, man. You know what I'm saying? She going in there against Roxanne Modafferi. And the one thing about Modafferi, right? If you've seen her come up through the tough house, her record is 23-16. A very different type of mixed martial artist, very educated in what she does. It just seems like she just get blown out a little bit. When I mean by blown out, it's not like she's being ran over as an easy touch. It just seems like she don't have a different gear. It's not like she isn't skilled. She's very skilled on her feet and the ground, but she's lacking tremendous amount of speed, diversity, being able to switch it up and keep her opponent a little bit off guard. I've seen almost all of her fights, since she was, kind of heralded as being the next important fighter on the rise. And once she ended up competing against competition that was much more quicker, more technically diverse in their striking game, was able to get in on her. Son was taking her down, even though she has some jiu-jitsu, some ground game. Modafferi, she just wasn't able to have a sense of urgency to come up with plan B, C, and D, or work for transitions to get up off the ground, get off her back. She can get outworked, so to speak, on her feet. So if I'm looking at this fight against Modafferi and Barber, I'm definitely going with Macy Barber. She's an upcoming rising star in the sport of mixed martial arts. The main card, heavyweight division, Alexia Oleinik against Maurice Green. And if you look at the record of Oleinik, it's 57-13, man. Come on already. This man has over 60. He's up there. I mean, you think Cowboy Cerrone has a lot of fights. Cowboy Cerrone has over 45 fights. Oleinik, he has over 70 fights, man. And this guy still hasn't got a title shot yet. It's not like he has a lopsided record. He has 57 victories and 13 losses to 1 draw. The man's been, excuse me, the man's been fighting for quite some time. You look at some of the big dogs that's in the UFC that's considered some of the most winningest or the most experienced mixed martial artists. They don't even have records like this guy. Maurice Green will be in there with a solid fighter. To be honest, with Maurice Green still trying to, prove his growth at 8-3, he might have his hands full with this experienced vet in Oleski. And I'm going with Oleinik on this, unless Maurice Green has some in the bag, for this veteran who pretty much seen it all, to be honest. For the women's bantamweight division, we're going to look at Holly Holmes. Holly Holmes, at one point in time, was the featherweight champion. That was 145. She's fighting at the women's bantamweight. Well, I'll take that back. Holly Holm was the bantamweight champion. She defeated Ronda Rousey. You also know Holly Holmes for being an 18-time boxing champion too. She has a decorated register to a combat sports, from freaking boxing over to do some kickboxing to mixed martial arts. She's 12-5, 12-5, 12 victories, 5 losses. She's going in there against a very tough, durable veteran in the UFC, Raquel Pennington, 10-7. And check this out. Look at Holly Holmes, right? She had basically won the bout back in 2015. How time flies, with that solid left high kick of Ronda Rousey on Ronda Rousey's blind side after being hit. And she was able to finally win that belt, right? So we all remember when she stepped in there and fought Miesha Tate. She was doing fairly well. In the 5th round, Miesha Tate held on for dear life as if it was her last time to take a title shot, to get a title shot, to win a belt. And she hung on to that leg, and she ended up freaking sinking in the RNC and subbing freaking Holly Holmes, man. It was one of the craziest fights. Like, it was a championship fight. They're in the 5th round, and Miesha Tate just held on for dear life because Holly Holmes was trying to keep distance and stay off the ground, because Miesha Tate's ground game was much more thorough and advanced than Holly Holmes. And Miesha Tate was able to sink in at RNC. And then she stepped in there with Valentina Shevchenko, of course. And Valentina Shevchenko, she's fought at 135. She's the current 125 champion at flyweight. And she's a beast. They call her the Bullet. Holly Holmes lost to her in 2016. And then this is 2 losses in a row now in 2016. In March, July, and then she steps in there, takes some time off, and come back February 2017. And she faced Jermaine Durandamy. And that was for the vacant featherweight championship. And this is where she could have actually established herself on a whole nother level outside of Ronda Rousey's win by becoming the 2-division champion. But she lost via decision. She got outworked by a striker in Durandamy. And, that was her 3rd loss in a row. So she came back around June and fought Beth Correa. And amazingly, she was able to land a head kick. I mean, that's easy to do it on Correa, because she loves to stand in the pocket and bang. And Holly Holmes is a stand-up striker herself. So, of course, she was able to get that via head kick, because that's what Holly does. If you allow her to stay around long enough, she can land that head kick. Yeah, Flat Earth Deacon, what's good, man? Yeah, that was a beautiful head kick. And, it's one of the best upsets ever in the UFC. It ranks one of the best ever, men or women. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm saying it ranks up there as one of the best, in my opinion, because Ronda Rousey was just having a good old field day, being the pioneer of the bantamweight division, and then run into Holly Holmes the way she did and get stopped. She just looked terrible, Ronda Rousey. She took that loss very bad. So then Holly Holmes, she steps back in there December 2017 against Cris Cyborg. And at the time, even myself, I'm looking at her jiu-jitsu competitions. I'm looking at her freaking Muay Thai competitions. And I say, Cris Cyborg was the baddest woman on the planet. You know what I'm saying? The baddest woman on the planet. And she came back and, she finally made it over here and start winning. And Holly Holmes ended up losing a decision to Cris Cyborg. The reason why she lost the decision was because she kept her distance. She knew what the hell was going on with the hands of Cris Cyborg. You know what I'm saying? So she fought a different type of fight. She almost fought the same fight she did against Ronda Rousey. And that's exactly what she was trying to do in the last round against Miesha Tate. But Miesha Tate was put her antennas up, and she was able to hold on to that leg to get that single. Plus, Miesha Tate, one of her strong points is wrestling. Miesha Tate is thorough ground practitioner, man. And that's why her and Ronda Rousey Bouts, when Ronda Rousey had her in the armbar and was trying to break her arm off, man, Miesha Tate was tough, man. I just, I really felt some type of way she wasn't able to defeat Ronda Rousey. And Ronda was so mean to her, though. You know what I'm saying? I like Miesha Tate, man. But anyway, um, Holly Holmes lost to Chris Cyborg, and then she won against the taller, bigger Megan Anderson. Megan Anderson is just a big fighter, but she's slow. She's just slow. I don't know what she's doing with her career right now. Is she really serious about maintaining, or she's happy to be in the UFC? I really don't know. I almost had an interview with her, and then she ended up canceling at the last minute. I don't know. But I do know she stay on IG taking pictures all the time, more than she do in the cage, in my opinion. Next was Amanda Nunes, and we all know that's the champ right now. Bantamweight, 135 and 145. She's considered the baddest woman on the planet after defeating Chris Cyborg. I kind of have my debate about that, because I feel due to contractual discrepancies and animus that was going on between Cyborg and Dana White, she really wanted to leave the UFC. So if by chance she would have won that fight with Amanda Nunes, the UFC would have forced her to sign another contract. And she really didn't want to be over there anymore. The reason being, people, when you have the boss up there making man jokes and off-gender remarks about a fighter who's actually a female, you know what I'm saying? She's a female. Regardless of what she was transitioning to, when she wasn't clean or whatever the case may be, Cyborg is legitimate born female. But Dana White had made all these jokes about it, and then you had Joe Rogan, and Chris Cyborg really never felt at home in the UFC. So that's why she just didn't feel comfortable staying there. So I truly believe she really didn't want to win that fight with Amanda Nunes. For her to keep getting up and just recklessly going in on Amanda, who has pretty solid surgical striking, she wanted out. And she lost her title. And she's now signed to a neighboring organization. And I seriously don't blame her. I like Chris Cyborg. She's a beast. I'm curious to see how she does in her first fight outside the UFC. I mean, she wasn't even in the UFC that long, to be honest. And now Raquel Pennington is basically back up in the shoot for this weekend. Just a little bit about Pennington. She's been in there with the likes of Kat Zingano, very tough fighter. She lost back in 2012. Leslie Smith, 2013. Leslie Smith was supposed to, make a little bit of spark, but her too. She didn't involve with the game, started losing. Tanya Evinger. I'm giving you all these fights because I remember watching. Tanya Evinger is one of the most country. I'm talking about, I can't call her a redneck, but country outback on the farm type of tough chicks that you will ever see. Tanya Evinger, she's exciting to watch, man. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, when she was in there, I believe she fought Chris Cyborg. She was taking some heavy shots from Cyborg, man, and she was still going. She's the type of chick that she would defend her man, but she found out her man was freaking screwing around on her. Shit, all hell's gonna break loose, man. She's the kind of female to pull out the shotgun. For real. Tanya Evinger, man, I like seeing her fight. Overall win, plaid shirt win type of fighter. Moving on, she had a loss to Jessica Rakoski back in 2013. Names you might not be familiar with if you didn't follow Pennington's rise to the UFC. I'm gonna skip up to the main hitters. 2015, she fought Holly Holmes, right? She lost via split decision. Now she's gonna face her again this weekend. After losing to Holly Holmes, she fought Jessica Andrade, who was the strawweight champion and never had a chance to defend it. She just lost her title against Shiley Wiley Zhang, rather, the first Chinese female champion, or first Chinese champion, period, in the UFC. Wiley Zhang. She the one who defeated Jessica Andrade in the first round, man. And then you had Beth Correa. Of course, she's pretty decent whenever she feels like it, but she's been losing a lot too. I haven't seen her back around lately. But Pennington has a win over her back in 2016. And then August of 2016, she fought Elizabeth Phillips. Then in November, she fought Miesha Tate. All right. So Pennington had 3 fights in 2016, pretty active. Now she goes on a 2-fight losing streak when she faces Amanda Nunes, of course, in 2018. And then Jermaine de Randamie, back to back. Very tough fights. Very tough fights. One was in May, and then the other one was in November. And then she come off those 2 back-to-back losses. In 2019, July, she faced Irene Aldana, a fighter that's not well known, but she fought on UFC on the ESPN4, and she was able to get the victory via split decision. Now she steps in there against Holly Holmes again. And, that's just kind of a little breakdown of Holly Holmes and Raquel Pennington. 2 veterans of the UFC, both have their share of losses. If I have to put anything into this fight, any effort to give a prediction, I have to do the subtractions first with Holly Holmes. Holly Holmes being knocked out the way she was, you know what I'm saying? It was just a little bit crazy, and how she cannot pull the trigger. And that may be because of her boxing, because Holly Holmes did take a lot of punishment as a boxer. And then Pennington, she's very tough. She can come forward. One of her last fights, man, she wanted to quit, and her corner told her to continue. I'm not sure what that was about, but she felt she couldn't go on, and her corner was like, "Nah, you want to finish." Anyway, Pennington is very tough. I'm not sure if her striking is up to par with Holly Holmes, but like I told you before, Holly Holmes is known to freeze up. She's known to have those glitches in her focus while she's in the cage. And I don't know if it's pugilistica, being that she gets caught up and not being able to pull the trigger. I have no idea, but she has that little gloomy look to her. I still want to go with Holly Holmes in this fight, though. And of course, the last one. What's going on, John McDonald? Donald Cerrone with KO McGregor. Okay, this is what I'm about to get to now. The main event. Notorious Conor McGregor is back in the limelight again against a highly recognizable, respectable veteran against Cowboy Cerrone. One time Cowboy Cerrone was a fighter that I just said, you know what? I just can't wait to Cowboy get back in here, because I couldn't wait to see him fight again. That's just how much, Cowboys is interesting. So I want to take y'all on like this tour on Conor McGregor and Cowboy Cerrone. And what's important is people need to understand, outside of Conor McGregor's idiotic behavior and juvenility outside the cage, he did some legendary stuff, y'all. Conor McGregor pulled off some legendary feats, okay, outside of his buffoonery. And we're going to talk about that right now. Let's start with the Conor McGregor that fought. I'm going to start with some notable names. Dennis Silver, okay? When he fought Dennis Silver, right, he finished with ground and pound in round 2. This was after he was coming off Diego Brandao and Dustin Poirier, winning round 1. This one, Conor was making his rise. And within that collection, he had went decision with Max Holloway. But those next 2 fights, Brandao and Poirier, round 1. Remember what I said? Round 1. Winning that with Dennis Silver, right? Very tough fighter, short, stocky. Round 2, finish. Ground and pound. So this where it gets interesting. Team Alpha Male Chad Mendes steps up. Really been trying to make a name for himself. So what better fight for him to take than Conor McGregor, who's on the rise? Conor McGregor goes in there and shut down Mini Mendes, as he called him, in round 2. We're talking about 2 back-to-back round 1 stoppages and then the second round 2. This is the peaking point of him, full momentum to get his first title shot. He stops Chad Mendes in 2015, July. Then the punch heard around the world, people, when he stepped in there with Jose Aldo, considered one of the best featherweights around in the UFC. He held the title for like 9 years. He goes in there and KOs Jose Aldo in 13 seconds with the left hand. Hey, both of them was punching at the same time. And Conor McGregor landed. Done. Featherweight champion. You can't tell him anything. Conor McGregor picks up his first world title. So he's supposed to have a bout with Rafael dos Anjos. Is canceled. And then he steps in there with the Stockton's own Nate Diaz. But the one important part was this fight was contended at welterweight. Why? Because, the Diaz was trying to, I don't know what they was trying to do. He was just trying to get a big name fight and a big ticket. He wasn't able to fight for any title. He hasn't even been active enough. But he decided to come back and face Conor McGregor at welterweight. Not for a title, just for bragging rights. That's what I'm saying. It's legendary with Conor McGregor. Because we're talking about he went in there, dispersed of Dennis Silver in round 2, Chad Mendes round 2, Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. Look, for 2015, December, he stepped back in there in March at 170. He fought Jose Aldo at 145, people. He went from 145 to 170 and still was a smaller fighter and fought Nate Diaz. And we all saw what happened. He gassed out, shot in for a takedown, and Nate Diaz was like, huh? He was like, what? You going in for a takedown? Are you seriously giving me this? We just came out of Christmas, and you seriously giving me this gift? So, of course, RNC, rear naked choke. Nate Diaz, in his famous quote, said he ain't surprised. And you know what? It was a solid win, man. I was really going for my boy Diaz because I grew up off the Diaz brothers. They was doing a lot of the trash talking and bravado long before Conor McGregor. But they never got credit for it. People freaking frowned upon them for doing that shit. But then Conor McGregor come with an Irish accent, you know what I'm saying? And people just love it. They love his machismo, everything about his persona, the way he looks and everything. So anyway, Conor McGregor is subbed out by Nate Diaz. This is in March. They turn back around and come back in August for a rematch. And I felt real funny about this. I said, is Diaz training hard? Is this going to be one of those fights where it doesn't even look nowhere close to the first one? And it was a pretty decent rematch, man. It was okay. I ain't gonna lie to you. I wasn't overly enthused about what I was seeing from Nate Diaz getting dropped the way he did. I just didn't think Conor was hitting him that hard. And come to find out, he said he was trying to lure Conor in to the ground game, but he never took the bait. And that goes off what I was saying. When I was observing the fight, I say it's no way that Conor McGregor is dropping Nate Diaz right now. It's no way. And then Diaz finally came and made a good account of himself and basically fessed up and said he was trying to bait Conor in. He lost that fight via majority decision. That was in August 2016. This is where it gets interesting, y'all. In November, we're talking about August, September, October, November. Then I just say he came off that loss to Nate Diaz, 170, right? Came back for another fight in August at 170. Then in November, he drops back down to 155 to face Eddie Alvarez. the underground king, a fighter who's been champion in every organization he fought in. Every organization. Conor McGregor goes in there, round 2. Hear me what I'm saying. Dustin Poirier, round 1. Diego Brandao, round 1. Dennis Silver, round 2. Chad Mendes, round 2. Jose Aldo, round 1. Nate Diaz, round 2. This is top quality opposition. They may not have been as well-rounded as they are, last year? But they was top-tier opposition. Nate Diaz lost round 2. Got it back with a majority. Eddie Alvarez, round 2. Now he's the first 2-division champion of the UFC. I mean, he's on the highest freaking canopy that you can look up in the damn sky and see. Everything was Conor McGregor. Everything. First 2-division champion. I mean, you could not tell Conor McGregor nothing. He was full speed. And even though it started to spiral out of control outside of the cage, I'm talking about what he did was legendary. What Conor McGregor was able to do was absolutely legendary to the sport. 2-division champion, featherweight and lightweight. Then it comes to a point where he's jumping on the Ronda Rousey bandwagon and he's starting to talk trash to Floyd Mayweather. Dana White is seeing the traction and they end up doing enough to sell the fight to get people to think, hey, Conor McGregor, he can be the one who defeats Floyd Mayweather. So what they do, they start bumping it up in the media, trash talking one another, keeping the energy right, and the fight ended up being made. Conor McGregor was granted a license. Now I'm gonna tell you how it works since I actually covered boxing at the regional and at the highest. Somebody with Floyd's caliber, if you would have said, okay, Floyd with his record is about to face an 0-0 fighter, the commissioner wouldn't have approved it. They wouldn't have approved a fight with a fighter with 0-0 freaking boxing record going in there with a multi-time world champion. But since Conor McGregor was bagged by the UFC and he was also the 2-division champion in mixed martial arts, they saying to themselves, well, he can handle himself pretty much. He can handle himself. You know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and grant him a license against TBE. And that's exactly what they did. They granted him a license against Floyd Mayweather. They went in there and made millions of dollars, and Floyd stopped him in the 10th round. That's legendary. What I just told you, that's legendary by Conor McGregor. From mixed martial arts, crossing over to Floyd Mayweather, going 10 rounds. Even though Floyd carried him, he went 10 rounds and made more than he would have ever made in his UFC career. Period. Legendary. So that was August 2017. It took him over a year to come back and fight Khabib Nurmagomedov. And we all seen what happened. It was a very personal, the verbal sparring back and forth, the insults, the obscenities, the disrespect of religion, family, all that shit was popping off between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor. It was very, very personal. And you just don't do that to a family like Khabib Nurmagomedov and where they're from and everything. And then you had the Ireland back in Conor McGregor. It was real nasty. It was just absolutely chaos and mayhem leading up to this fight. So they finally locked up October 2018, and it was a pretty solid fight. I liked it. You know what I'm saying? I liked the beginning of it on how Conor's, proven that he's been working on his takedown defense from a Sambo world champion that's Khabib Nurmagomedov. The little sprinkle of light that he was able to do, by temporarily stalling Khabib's takedown. Stalling. I wouldn't say he stuffed it. I would say he stalled it because Khabib was still in control. He was still in control of the movement. He was still in control of the pressure. He was never, ever out of position that it felt like Conor was able to sweep that or make it back to his feet. So Khabib worked and worked, turned the corner, and ended up getting a takedown. That's what he does. But anyway, the fight went back and forth. Khabib had more high point moments in that fight, especially when he landed the right hand, drop Connor, and then just his pressure, the way he scoops the legs up, pull them together, and prevents his opponents from even having a base to stand up on. Khabib is a beast. He's a savage. His pressure on the ground is just amazing. And working and working, sapping that energy from Conor McGregor, forcing him up against the cage, relentless. Khabib is relentless. He's a mercenary when it comes to getting a takedown. He's driven by blurred lines, man. All Khabib see is he has to get you in a vulnerable position and punish you. And that's what he did to Conor McGregor. And give it up for Conor McGregor. He did not take an extensive amount of punishment for Khabib like Michael Johnson did, like Edson Barbosa did. He didn't take an extensive amount of punishment when he was on his butt up against the cage. That's the first fight that I actually started giving Conor a little bit of credit for working on his ground game, his defense. I started giving him a little bit of credit outside of him being subbed out by Nate Diaz in round 2. Because a lot of people saying he's not even a white belt in jiu-jitsu. He don't know what he's doing on the ground. But he showed me a little bit with Khabib. And we'll be stupid to think that he went into training camp and he wasn't working with some wrestlers for a fighter like Khabib Nurmagomedov. But anyway, Khabib was able to sink in a fulcrum choke. A lot of people call it RNC. On topology, they has it RNC, but it wasn't a rear naked choke. It was actually a fulcrum choke, the way it was set up. And if you look at the choke itself and see how Khabib Nurmagomedov's left arm is 12-6, the way he has the neck crank going, it's just amazing. It's a technical, proficient, high-level sub from Khabib. It deals with a freaking a jaw crank, a neck crank, so to speak, combined with the choke. And it was so restrictive. It didn't even seem like it was all the way, like it seemed like Conor could have fought it if he knew what the hell he was doing. But you're talking about a constrictor, a submission specialist like Khabib Nurmagomedov, and his pressure must have been tremendous. And Conor was ended up, being subbed again. Now let's get to Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Cowboy Cerrone, his ground game is not the problem. Cowboy Cerrone is well versed in his jiu-jitsu. He's well versed in his mixed martial skills as a package, as a veteran of the sport. He's one of those wild, crazy, insane type of fighters who can do extreme sports and then train mixed martial arts too, right? And then you have Conor McGregor, who has really came into his own. He's been to the mountaintop. Conor McGregor not only went to the mountaintop, they had some freaking wings up there for him. And he went even higher. When he went over to fight Floyd Mayweather, that's not a mountaintop. That's like in a whole different stratosphere when you go over there and make hundreds of millions. You know what I'm saying? That's a whole nother stratosphere he went to. Him going here against Cowboy Cerrone is just one detail that worries me about them going in here fighting. And that's Cowboy Cerrone's punishment. You know what I'm saying? His lack of durability in certain areas where fighters are able to pressure Cowboy Cerrone and land some solid punches. Like we seen it. We seen it with the Justin Gaethjes. You know what I'm saying? We seen it, man. I'm saying to myself, no, man, I can't bet against my boy Cowboy. He's gonna take this fight. And I don't know if it was the close fight camps that he had You know what I'm saying? He was just coming back with a quick return. But I was like, man, there's no way that I can bet against Cowboy Cerrone going in here against some of these fighters that he was losing to. So let's just go up to like the more recent ones. Jorge Masvidal. Okay, we're seeing what happened. Round 2, punches, right? So I'm saying to myself, is he a better fighter, in my opinion, mixed martial artist than Jorge Masvidal back in 2017? Yes, I believe he was. But I'm not sure how his training was going because he ended up leaving his camp. You know what I'm saying? He ended up leaving his long time school. Then he steps in there with Robbie Lawler, who's pretty much he's evolved his game. Robbie Lawler's a tough guy. I'm glad he was able to pick up his championship belt against freaking Johnny Hendricks. I really despise Johnny Hendricks, one of the most boringest freaking welterweights ever. Anyway, Robbie Lawler was able to defeat Cowboy Cerrone. And I'm like, okay, that's the second loss in a row. And then he went in there against Darren Till. You know, Darren Till was so freaking one-dimensional. And I'm like, how can Cowboy Cerrone get stopped in the first round by Darren Till? I just always thought Darren Till was overrated. And he didn't get exposed until he stepped in there with the one and only freaking Tyron Woodley after one of the most boringest middleweight fights ever in history. It's the number one. Him and man, I just had his name. Darren Till when he faced Wonder Boy Stephen Thompson. The most boringest freaking fight in UFC history. So he went in there and got knocked out. Anyway, he steps in there against Yancy Medeiros, Hawaiian fighter. And he stops him. He shuts down Medeiros in round 1, which that's what I'm talking about. He's able to do that. That's Cowboy. He has the skill set to do it. So he stepped in there with Leon Edwards and he loses via decision. And I'm like, damn, I'm waiting on him to put on the gas, man, against Leon Edwards. And this is 2018. I say, you're better than that. Then we all saw what he did to Platinum Mike Perry. He tried to snatch that man's arm off and take it home and use it for a carjack. He was determined to dislocate and remove Mike Perry's arm. And Mike Perry had to tap out round 1. He had to tap out. That's what I'm saying about Cowboy Cerrone's ground game, man. This dude sometimes wins fights with punches, and sometimes he wins fights with submissions. It's in his cachet of weapons to use. Anyway, next was Alexander Hernandez. He won round 2. Okay, he should have. Alaquinta. Man, come on. Alaquinta, very tough real estate agent. Nah, I'm just joking. I mean, you know, he out of the Matt Serra Tulich. I have mad respect for Alaquinta. He don't take nothing for no one. Cowboy Cerrone beat him in unanimous decision. We're talking about the same Alaquinta who went the distance with Khabib Nurmagomedov. You know what I'm saying? Like, Alaquinta was tough, and this is 3 wins in a row. Mike Perry, Alexander Hernandez, and Alaquinta. Cowboy Cerrone seems like he's back in the hunt. He's back in the freaking hunt, man. Then he steps in there with Tony Ferguson, one of the most awkward, eccentric assassins that you will ever meet. And he put a beating on Cowboy Cerrone to the point where his eye was freaking swole. Like, we're talking about just in 2 rounds, man. 1 round, he did an entire too much damage. And I'm like, what game plan do you have, Cowboy? How is this possible? He lost to Tony Ferguson, then went in there against the highlight reel, Justin Highlight Gaethje. And Justin Gaethje, if you know anything about the way he steps into the cage, he already has a different type of gamma going on. Justin Gaethje really put it on Cowboy. Serious. I mean, he put it on like only Justin Gaethje knows how to and stop him in round 1. That's Tony Ferguson round 2 and that's freaking Justin Gaethje in round 1. Now he's stepping in there with Conor McGregor, who really gets started early in fights. Cowboy Cerrone takes a little bit more time to warm up. John McDonald said he believes that Donald Cerrone will KO McGregor. The only thing I feel about that is it's 2 parts. You know, if I choose to dichotomize it, right? Your statement is partially correct in the belief that Conor McGregor can be dropped. It just takes the right person to land the punch the correct way, because Conor McGregor stance and his gauging method is pretty impressive. The way he puts the ruler out there. He puts the ruler out there, and he allows that measuring stick, as they call it, if you're going to use a jab. He keeps it out there, measure it, and then he waits to land that left hand. Now you're talking about a southpaw. And Donald Cowboy Cerrone has been in there with some of everybody. And that's one important part about Conor McGregor. He's very methodical on landing his left hand. But can Cowboy drop Conor McGregor? Does he have enough sting on his punches to drop Conor McGregor? I mean, I'm trying to compare somebody that Conor McGregor's actually dropped. And I'm trying to compare them. I'm trying to compare Cowboy Cerrone to someone he's actually dropped to that of Conor McGregor. And, you know, it depends on what Conor McGregor we're going to see, because he's been known in some fights to take some goddamn punches, man, and keep on jumping. That's what Conor McGregor does. Now, is Cowboy Cerrone capable of softening up McGregor with some leg kicks? Because he basically said, why wouldn't you want to stand with the fighter that's a striker? You know, why wouldn't I want to stand and bang with one of the best strikers in the game? That could be mind games, or that can be absolutely his mentality, because Donald Cowboy Cerrone, he is an insane ghost rider, man. Like Cowboy Cerrone, he is that extreme guy. Maybe he should have took up a different sport. I'm not sure. But Cowboy Cerrone, if he says why wouldn't I want to stand up and trade? I'm like, okay, it might be a little bit of mind games. He's smarter than that. But can Donald drop Conor McGregor? I believe he can, man. I believe Conor McGregor can be dropped. He has a respectable beard on him. But I just don't know what Cowboy we're going to see. Now, can Conor McGregor drop Cowboy? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be very dangerous for Cowboy in the first 2 rounds, because that's, as we know it, that's Conor McGregor's bread and butter right there with the super proper 12. That's his bread and butter. First 2 rounds, Conor McGregor is full speed ahead. He would try to do as much damage as possible. And if you're able to carry him into the 3rd round, you know, then you will see him start to digress a little bit with his freaking cardio. His gas tank, it runs on a little bit of fumes then until he gets his second breath. We've seen him catch his second breath against Diaz. So it's there. His second backup reservoir is there. It's according to who's putting the pressure on him. Khabib never allowed him to catch his second breath, his second win. Never. He was just on him, never gave him a chance to breathe. And Conor didn't have any other choice but to capitulate. But with Cowboy Cerrone, his pressure ain't like Khabib. That would be his downfall, stand out there at distance with Conor McGregor. Now, to say what McDonald said, Cowboy freaking KO McGregor, it would be one of the biggest upsets. It wouldn't be in the top freaking 5, of course. But the only reason I'm saying right now is that they're trying to build up Conor McGregor once again for a second run as superstardom. And the fact that he's up here at welterweight, they will potentially try to build up that fight with him and Jorge Masvidal. That's what they're trying to do for money. Forget Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman may be the middleweight champion, but he's very bland. I mean, I'd rather watch paint dry, you know what I'm saying, than watch Kamaru Usman fight. I don't care what he did to Tyron Woodley. He's just a boring fighter to me. A lot of people used to say Tyron Woodley was boring, but I'm like, shit, he fought Stephen Wonderboy Thompson twice. He fought there Damian Maia, BJJ world champion, tore his labrum, defending like 23 takedown from Maia. And then he steps in there with the bigger fighter, Darren Till, who was looking for a come-up fight, and he crushed him. He crushed him with the same punch he always used. Lure you back to the cage and crack you with the right hand. Drop Darren Till, landed some crucial, vicious elbows, and finished the fight. How do I see this fight playing out? Man, to be honest, I truly believe that Conor McGregor being that, you know, he's not an active. I mean, like he wants to land that left hand, but I just think Cowboy Cerrone is smarter than that. He's just smart enough not to engage close distance with Conor McGregor to his strengths. I see the fight going at least to the third and fourth round. A part of me is saying Conor McGregor may indeed find a way to stop Cowboy Cerrone. I'm picking Conor McGregor via KO, and I think it may come in the third round. Like I said, Cowboy Cerrone showed up against Mike Perry. That came out of nowhere with the submission. Is it possible for him to get Conor McGregor in a submission? Truly, yes, because Conor McGregor's ground game is still suspect. It's a tyro. You know, he's still a novice on the mat against high top tier fighters. So I'm curious to see if by chance Cowboy gets him on the ground, what is Conor McGregor going to be able to do? Because his ground game, Cowboy's ground game, is very respectable and legit. But I see Conor McGregor stopping him in three. I do. I seriously do. And if that's the case, Conor McGregor will indeed go over here, and Dana White will be running, you know, at full speed, which is almost the speed of two sloths with asthma. And he'll be running back there to the freaking post-fight press conference saying, yes, we will indeed get to see Conor McGregor face Jorge Masvidal. And man, I just can't wait to line them pockets. That's going to be a big money fight. And Jorge Masvidal said it may be one of the biggest fights. It will be the biggest fight, one of the biggest fights of the UFC. And I agree with him. It will be one of the biggest fights of the UFC. It will, because both of those guys have momentum. Jorge Masvidal has momentum coming off a 5-second knockout of Ben Askren. I mean, he's been on a win streak. And then, of course, Conor McGregor, what he did previously with the two divisions, even being subbed by Nate Diaz, but coming back and avenging that loss, and then taking some time off, coming back and fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov and being subbed. Somehow, some way, the fans are supporting Conor McGregor again. And this is weird, right? It's weird. It's weird to a point because Conor McGregor has been doing some crazy stuff outside the cage. And the fans was like talking all this noise about him. You know, he's crazy. He on drugs. He's just alcoholic. He jumped over the cage in Bellator. He freaking he had the incident with Khabib, but he was only fined like $50,000 and suspended just a little bit. And from what I hear, Khabib was fined $500,000, $500,000. And then he had the incident where he came looking for Khabib, because Khabib gave his boy Artem Lobov the little boy speech. And then he hit the old man, smashed the phone in public. I mean, he was all over the place. But his fans are trying it out again. They're saying, you know what? We want to support Conor McGregor, and we're going to do it again. So I feel the momentum coming back on. It got so bad to the point at the press conference when a media guy tried to ask about the ongoing assault allegation that's going on with Conor McGregor, the crowd was booing. That's how insensitive. That's how little. Like, if they don't have any solid, concrete evidence as a society, we would just basically jettison the fact of the possibility it happened. And when it coming from a high tier name like Conor McGregor or any top tier celebrity, right? So the audience up there just booing and booing and booing, like they really don't want to hear about it. And then Cowboy Cerrone say, we're talking about the fight. We're talking about what's going on in here. And that's a little bit insensitive, but that's combat sports, man. Seriously, if you're not locked up and it's really insufficient evidence at the time, you know, people don't want to hear about it, especially if they trying to freaking love their fighter. So that's where we at with Conor McGregor. The fans is trying to embrace him again, showing some love and all this other crap. And they're trying to gravitate to the notorious one again. Conor McGregor, one thing I would say, he's trying to act more mature. He's trying to act like he's much more a people's champ. He's trying to be a people's champ. He's trying to cool down and act more mature and sensible and level-headed now. He's trying to act like he's been here before, so he don't have to say, you know, pull out the red panties or, you know, who the fuck is that guy? He's really trying to turn over a different layer as the bad guy turned good guy now. You know what I'm saying? He don't have any other choice because he's been screwing up so much out in public. He has to come back and shed a different light to the public so they can gravitate to him and treat him different and treat him as the good guy. You know what I'm saying? They want to love him. But they didn't, you know, the PR team for Tyson Fury and Conor McGregor is probably the same people, man. Real talk. So that's what I have on the UFC, man, because you're gonna have to really test yourself and say, okay, do I really want to see this fight? Conor McGregor's 31 years old. Cowboy Cerrone 36. MMA fights 50 to Cowboy and 25 to Conor McGregor. Wins 21, Cowboy 36. Conor McGregor has 4 losses. Cowboy 13. Knockouts 18 to Conor McGregor, 10 to Cowboy Cerrone. And that's why I feel that, you know, Conor McGregor being a knockout specialist with his left hand, he may indeed come close to stopping Cowboy Cerrone early, mid-fight. So that's where we at with that. That's my prediction. Conor McGregor stopping Cowboy Cerrone in round 3. You know what I'm saying? That's about where I can go with that. And for those of you fans that you know, really follow mixed martial arts, try looking at the preliminaries all the way up to the main card so you can get a little bit of familiarity with these up and coming fighters, man. Like the changing of the guard in combat sports is just so tricky. Like you see your favorite names coming back after being knocked out, and you're like, why are they still fighting? Because that's just the way the UFC do it, man. Like they want to keep making money, and in order for them to make money, they have to keep using the notable names, because that's the crazy part about the MMA fan base. They love seeing the same names coming there, whether they winning or losing. Like Alistair Overeem. I mean, we never thought we'll see him back in the cage after he got stopped by Francis Ngannou, but we did. But we did. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you keep seeing the same fighters come back over and over again after being stopped. I guess they saying they might have got knocked out, but they didn't take that much punishment. Like in boxing, in some regions, if you go in there and get stopped, you suspended for like 3 to 6 months. You know, in mixed martial arts, you know, we can talk about the UFC. You might see that fighter come back next month. It depends on how bad they was knocked out. A knockout over in the UFC is absolutely different than boxing. I can tell you that. They don't care about losses in the mixed martial arts. In boxing, they really have a concern with losses. Can you imagine somebody going up there getting title preference and they have 13 losses in boxing? They're going in there against an undefeated fighter. You know what I'm saying? Could you imagine that happening in boxing? When you have other champions and top rank opponents out here with better records and resumes, but yet this fighter is coming up here because the one with the better record don't have a name and they can't sell tickets. So we need somebody that has a name, and you take the one that's actually have a higher loss IQ and you put him in there because he has a name to sell tickets. Yeah, it'll be crazy. So that's what separates boxing and mixed martial arts, man. You lose, you come in there and lose again. They let you stay out for a little bit, and then they bring you back and put you on the undercard, the prelims or whatever, and see how you do. Put you in there with another fighter that was making it up through the ranks, and end up catching some L's. You beat them, then they put you back on the undercard. Yeah, man, that's how it is, man. So get used to it. But besides that, it's been an absolute pleasure talking mixed martial arts. It's going down, UFC 246. The main event, Saturday, January 18th, 10 p.m., T-Mobile Arena, PPV. Like I said, it was $64, and that's Eastern Standard Time. And check out the preliminary card. Like I said, it's pretty decent. You know, you got one female fight at flyweight, and then a featherweight and a flyweight fight with two male fights. Andre Philly and Sodiq Yusuff in featherweight, and then flyweight is Tim Elliott and Askar Askarov, undefeated, very talented dude. He might indeed stop Tim Elliott, which is very hard to stop. I just think it might be via sub or what, but Askarov is pretty talented. That's what I got right now, man. I done stayed on here too long. I can't really talk about the boxing because I'll be back on here Saturday. And y'all stay tuned, man. I'll probably be back for a live stream on the fights this weekend. So be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, man, and follow me on all social media platforms. You know, we're trying to get the subscribers up to 5,000 and so on. I appreciate everybody's input tonight. Pass the word. Boxing, MMA, grappling, whatever the case may be. I'm definitely going to talk about it. Salute to everybody. Be sure to turn up and tune in. I'm out.